One.
Hello. Hello. Welcome to Conscious Living Podcast Series. I'm here today in the studio at Specialty Produce Network, and I'm so happy to announce my guest, Mike Peterson in San Francisco, California. He is here talking about today about the disorganized brain and from the Brain Integration Institute. Welcome, Mike. So glad you're here.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me. It's
Oh,
always a pleasure.
you're welcome. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people with a disorganized brain.
I work with a lot of people who have anxiety, stress that they can't turn off. I work with a lot of people, like in Hollywood, I turn off stage fright and anxiety around performance. But I came to all that through working with people who had come out of war. I myself had worked in ambulances about a 8-year period, and been acquainted with both first responders and then through working with people who had been in combat, very stressful situations.
Wow.
And well, we learned quite a number of things over the years, through our experience and research, and obviously from studying, what other scientists and psychologists and things have been doing, and um, be able to share some of what we learned specifically around our ability to focus and, as a disorganized brain, um, how that affects us in day-to-day life, both from our stress levels, our ability to function, and a whole broad range of things.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So talking about that, I mean, people can kind of really understand or guess or have an idea of what a disorganized brain is. I think all of us experience it from one moment to the next during a day and depending, like you said, on the level of stress. But where do you like to focus? What kind of clients and people and parents for kids? Seeing them, what do you see mostly about supporting these types of people that are really experienced in and I think we're talking about something a little bit more than average daily stress. And what does that mean and how do you help them?
Yeah. Um, well, a sort of a little known fact, if you will. Um, Over the last several years, it's become more and more apparent that people who have a base level of stress, but they don't even necessarily know it, base level of stress actually have a much harder time concentrating. Now, it's really significant, and people I've worked with and other people within the field, um, people who have PTSD, or whether it's not even something where we would realize, okay, you just came from war, or you're a paramedic who just dealt with a, death of a pediatric patient, or something along those lines that we would have easy recall of from as adults. Um, that actually, even though we would say, oh, well, my traumatic childhood or my traumatic teenage years are past, it couldn't possibly be that. There's always some basic learning. We call them imprints. And what happens is that our brain is constantly on high alert from those events. And whether it's from a one or two, it doesn't have to be very many, one or two traumatic kind of experiences, very intense, that happened to us as a child or a teenager, or of course, obviously as an adult. When our brain is constantly on high alert, even in non stressful settings, certain people have a basic level of stress. Give a case example. Someone who, when sitting enjoying um, we'll say they're enjoying a meal or they're just relaxing in front of a fireplace, and they get antsy. They feel like they have to get up and move around. Or they're sitting at their desk. It's a relatively banal, easygoing, you know, something that they have to do, and they get antsy or they get anxious and they have to get up and move around, or they have to find some sort of thing that's more stressful in their environment to be able to handle. And it turns out that if we have stress, it doesn't actually have to show up physically in our environment. So we don't actually have to say, oh, it's, that report to give to work, or, oh, as a student, oh, I have to take that big test. It doesn't necessarily even have to be something that's so seemingly obvious. The vast, vast majority of the time, it's not. but it keeps this level of stress going on, or we're just kind of antsy. And that is the sort of thing that's frequently there, or almost for a lot of people, always there. Someone might say, well, I'm just a nervous individual. Someone says, I got to keep going. I've got a high motor running, or I've got a, with my metabolism, I have to keep going. But these people have this experience of feeling like it's hard to concentrate, like it's a disorganized brain. And a lot of people say, oh, I've got ADD. Or someone said I got ADD. I'm sure that's what it was. I was always a hyper child. Well, it turns out for a lot of people, that's not the case. So our ability to function and focus and think is not always someone says, I've got ADD. In fact, a lot of ADD is being diagnosed as such, both in adults and in kids, and it's not ADD. I
Right.
just saw a statistic yesterday. They're saying within a few years, based upon current trends, 1 in 7 boys in the United States are going to be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD.
Well, now I just have to add a few sentences about that because I find in my practice, in my private practice, that many ADD kids and adults experience multiple levels of consciousness at the same time. So they're receiving many, many levels and layers of sensory information at the same time, and they're not sure how. That would be the disorganized brain. They're not sure how to process all that sensory information coming in.
Correct.
And so it disorganizes them or throws them off or doesn't they don't know how to integrate all of that information coming in and then determine what it is to do with that information, whether to put it aside or whether to act on it or to and many times we react, right? And that's a lot of what you're talking about is our unconscious reactions and not knowing how come that happened? How come I acted like that? How come I got antsy or I
Yeah.
got up and couldn't deal with it or stared off into space at school or all of those aspects and so I think we don't as a society either give enough credence for how many sensory inputs we're really receiving and how to work with those how to okay there's loud noises in the background okay there's a I can hear the clock ticking in the classroom. Okay, the
Yes.
fluorescent lights are flickering and it's driving me bananas,
Hmm.
and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's no wonder it's hard for the kids to concentrate or adults to concentrate in their work environment as well. So it's helping a lot of people get connected with what are the distractions? What's preventing me from focusing in a certain area where I want to concentrate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the work that you and Annie Kalatkar have been doing to simplify some new ways to bring this information together to help people in the moment. I think you even used the description. It's almost like first aid. That's immensely important because when our brain is struggling to understand all of these things and to synthesize them, to pull them in together, it can be very challenging just to focus and function in day-to-day life, whether you're driving your car down the freeway or you're, which is obviously very important from a life preservation kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, but and actually I'll use that as an example. I had a client who said, Mike, when I get to the office, I'm so tense. Driving down the freeway is hard. I just to be able to focus. There's so many things going on at once. And I think the way you described it, this information from the clock ticking and from whatever the lights flickering. That's a
Right.
great example because he says, there's so much information, there's so much input. We've got cars going past and there's lights and there's so much of it to track at the same time. And he said, I've got ADD, and I tried taking this ADD medication, and it helped a little bit, but it made so many other things worse. And I bring that up because with just 2 sessions, we were able to dial down that the intensity of what it was like for him to drive. Now he's able to drive to work, just a couple of conversations basically, and it's so much better. Now here's the additional thing: his experience of when he goes into work and he's actually able to focus and concentrate. One of the things I know you've experienced in working with people is when there's this much difficulty processing the information coming in, and it takes a lot of mental effort to actually be able to make sense of it all and to focus to just get a simple task done. It actually generates stresses and releases cortisol levels and epinephrine or adrenaline, and then our system tries to balance it off. It can be very difficult. His experience was by dialing some of that back, he did not feel as mentally disorganized
Right.
and was able to focus better at work. But especially, I think being able to give the tools that you've developed to kids
Yeah.
earlier on is immensely useful. And I think, and having experienced your work with me as an adult, I think I noticed right away when I can shift my perceptions
Right.
uh, with what you're doing. I think that's really important. And
Right.
so I think it might be really useful to consider the distinctions. I'd love to hear what you say, your take on short-term shifts, like someone, a kid or adult, can generate right here in the moment versus a long-term shift.
Right. Well, I think looking at ways that we get triggered and move into those states which you described as hypervigilance,
Mm-hmm.
or I call rumination or fretting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Worry,
Yeah.
concern, overwhelm. All of those states of awareness, that fret, that fright, that scared, that unsure, that doubtful, all of those states create absolutely disorganization in the brain and nervous system, the hormonal system, the endocrine system, immune system, our heart, our breathing
Yes. Yes.
stops, all sorts of things, even vital signs change, our blood pressure raises, and all different things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we can notice when we're in those moments of fright or fret or worry or concern or overwhelm or too much sensory information coming in, and I'm like,
Yeah.
my brain is spinning, right? When we move into those situations, what we can do is take a moment and just stop and notice and go, oh, look, I'm human. I'm in that moment. So I
Yeah.
take a moment and I take a deep breath. And some moments, maybe not while driving, but other moments we can maybe close our eyes for a brief second and kind of tune in and notice where we're at and go, it's going to be okay. And when we breathe, right, we let out some of that through that exhalation, we let out some of that pent up energy or frustration or irritation. And then we can move into those points of what perception is happening. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like when someone's driving, okay, I'm getting a lot of sensory information. I was feeling really open, empathically, or emotionally because something
Mm-hmm.
emotional was going on at home. And now I'm on the freeway and I'm feeling every road rage person. And that can
Yes.
get overwhelming, right? And you say, okay, well, I'm going to let every road rage person just have their feelings. It's going to be okay. I don't
Yeah.
have to open to all of those feelings. I can come back to focusing on driving. And
Yeah.
that's, or in school, somebody might feel antsy and they may be wanting sensory information. So those are kids like that need proprioceptive in intake, right? And that's where they can raise their hand and advocate for themselves, let their
Correct.
needs met, and say, may I take a bathroom break? And when they go to the bathroom, they can jump up and down and spin or turn and turn
Yes.
their body back on, because and then we'll go into deeper reasons on why those things shut down, or we shut off, or we open too big and feel everybody's pain, all of those kinds of things. How we work with our body, our brain and nervous system, really is an aspect of how we're perceiving the world, how we take it all in. And that's what we like to gently and softly and supportively promote to people noticing in their lives so that they do have the opportunity to change the way they're thinking, perceiving, and or taking in all of that sensory information.
Yeah.
So
Well, very
that's
well put.
that's kind of the shortened version.
Yeah. And one of the things you started off with is in terms of integration, there's the people don't realize necessarily that um, when we do some of the things that you teach, being able to shift our perceptions, take that deep breath in, and change, energetically our perception to light or the density or whatever it is that's going on around us, we can actually teach the brain new ways to not only choose which information that it focuses on
Yeah.
and to notice what in our environment is most useful and just act upon that or react to that might be another way automatically.
A-
It
absolutely.
changes our body. It
It,
changes our body. It lowers our stress levels. It, as you're saying, it changes everything from the electricity flow through our body. It changes our digestion, like you said about whether you measure the amount of bile in someone's body, your stomach juices.
Right.
It literally shifts all sorts of things.
Even
And
motility, right? How
yes,
fast it moves through.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. The fight, flight, freeze mechanism. Um, as we speak, we are spiritual beings, and we
Yes.
interact with people around us. We are much more sensitive than we realize. And I tend to agree with quite a number of people that say that our brains, we have to learn how to control and focus these more psychic, extrasensory perceptive abilities. Because if we are in a place where we're listening to the people, we're in a meeting, for example, and you have people talking and there's papers rustling, and then, someone opens and closes the door, then the air conditioning turns on. We've got sight and smell and touch and taste and feel and temperature, all these sorts of things. But then, as you describe, people who feel the emotions of the people around them on the freeway, for example, and they feel the road rage and the frustration of traffic, it becomes so much to handle. And it's
Yes.
it's it's a it's a challenge because, most parents, even the best parents who do a great job raising their kid, it can be frustrating for parents to say, geez, we took the second job to put, to mom went back to work or whatever to get the kid into the best parochial school or best private school they could, or even tutors. And often, especially in kids and in adults, there's that challenge of saying, okay, where is the information coming from and how do I synthesize it? Now,
Right.
one of the things that this go in terms of being able to focus it back on the integration of the brain. A colleague of mine noticed some things some years ago, and I kept paying attention to what I was noticing with my clients. And we've really been able to refine down how um, each hemisphere of the brain has almost like its own personality because it has certain jobs that the left hemisphere will do better than the right. And it turns out that the fight, flight, stress response, the signaling that says something's not right, whether it's the signaling of uh-oh, I don't like spiders, get out of the room, or snakes, get me out of here, that sort of thing, to like your example, driving down the freeway and you're sensing the emotions of the people around you, or perhaps you're sensing all the emotions of the people you'd be with in a meeting. Well, it turns out that the right hemisphere of our brain is the part that's doing the signaling of that signals the stress or the anxiety, especially if that is what we're feeling when we're trying to focus. It
Yes.
turns out that that's the part of our brain that gets triggered. That's the part of the brain that's doing some people call it the lizard brain, some people call it the dinosaur or the monkey brain. But it's this incredibly beautiful, well fine-tuned part of our brain that's processing so much of this information. It just works overtime. And this is where our feeling of disorganized and our inability to get organized in our space with our desk, where those things seem to pop up. And I like to give people this little reframe. For the vast, vast, vast majority of everybody walking the face of this planet, it turns out that's actually a feature of our brains and not a problem. That's actually a sign of our brains working incredibly well, of how we've evolved to handle what's going on. The way to describe it is it's paying attention. Some part of you, whether you might be watching TV, you still hear the sounds that would be someone walking up your front step, or someone's going to put a key in the lock to your door. You respond to that. It's actually doing its job to keep you alive and well. It's just sometimes it pays attention to too much information. The hemispheres become unbalanced. They're not integrated to work together. And the great way to know if it's a sign that your brain is functioning properly is when people realize that they're triggered. And I'll give you an example. Someone says, I have a very difficult time focusing as a kid when I'm in a classroom. Okay. But if I'm at home and I'm with the family, there could be a TV going, mom's running a blender, dad's, running the dryer and the laundry, and I can hear all these different sounds, but I'm okay. I can focus on my work. But when I'm in school, I have a hard time. So that's an example. They're doing the same kind of work. It's just in one setting, it's more difficult than the others. Another case in point would be someone says, well, you know, um, like to take your point, driving the car. If I'm driving the car, I feel fine. But if I'm the passenger in the car, I get really anxious. And then by the time I get to work, I can't focus. So that's an example where we go, oh, our brain is actually trying to survive something. It's the right hemisphere of our brain. It's sending us these signals, but that's also the part of the brain that floods our body with the stress hormones things, and it makes it so much harder to integrate and make sense of all the information that's coming in. And that is a great sign because when we realize that it's really time and space specific, what the triggers are that seems to set us off,
Mm-hmm.
like someone speaks to us in that tone of voice,
Yeah.
um, that's where we're able to make really rapid shifts, and then it's not so much work
Right.
to understand those things. So I think what you're doing, teaching people how to handle these things in the moment, but practice these exercises so that the parts of their brain are beginning to work together and become
Yeah.
more integrated. So you don't have to, we don't have to focus on all these things. That's great. And then, sort of on the side of it that I work on, is turning off the triggers so that our brain says, oh, I don't have to pay attention to all this information. The information that matters that I can work with to change my focus and what's going on here in the moment is that amazing work that you're doing, which I tell people about it all the time. I think what you guys have developed is just fantastic.
Well, I think what we really ran into as well as a process to reformat or integrate and to reframe a lot of hypervigilant states or states of rumination or states of chronic fret on one level or
Mhm.
another is really training the brain and training you through a daily practice of really looking at what's first, what's good in life, and then looking at what's bad or not good or doesn't work, and honoring, of course, what doesn't work but not giving that first priority.
Yes.
And the reason why is when we go to look at, so we help people with a morning practice. All
Mhm.
kids, I don't know. I even think we could do it with babies, but we're starting with toddlers, 2 years old,
Mhm.
kids that are talking, and all the way up through senior year, whatever that is for ourselves. But when we wake up
Yeah.
in the morning, developing an air of gratitude about yourself, inside yourself.
Yes.
What's good about me?
Yes.
What am I grateful for physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? And it doesn't really matter which one. Just pick one. You can pick all of them if you want, but
Mhm.
pick one. And what that does is that reframes your brain and your nervous system to look at what's good, what's okay, what's safe, and it helps people acknowledge progress. And
Yes, it does.
and then when they're grateful, and then look outside and be grateful for what's outside in our external experience, what we've manifested, what we've created, what we've co-created with others, right? And when we do that, that air of gratitude adds such a level of thankfulness. And when we feel thankful, when we feel grateful, what happens is we that part that you're talking about, that really intricate critter brain or monkey brain or ego
Mhm.
brain, that part feels satiated, comforted, and nurtured. And that part feels safe and feels like it got its needs met.
Very
When
important.
I
Yeah.
know, and when we feel our needs are met, then now we're looking through a filter of not of lack or not of scarcity or upset or irritation or doesn't work or
Hmm.
doubt, right? And it's looking through a filter through our eyes of, okay, I can handle this. Okay. So then I ask everyone, or we ask everyone in it's called our psychic self care ebook. But
Hmm.
what we do is we teach people too. The second thing is what feels good in my body. Because most
Yes.
people, I don't know, I think around 90% of the population on the planet wake up, their eyes pop open, and the first thing they're thinking is what feels bad? What's going on? Or if their
Yeah.
to do list is really heavy, well, what do I got to do today?
Yes. Yes.
And it sets our brain in a fight or flight mode the second we pop our eyes open.
It does.
And
You're absolutely right.
what we want to do here at the brain integration is help people reorient their perceptual stance and where are they coming from first and foremost when they wake up in the morning. And so what feels good in the body, and it's funny because I say even people that suffer from a lot of pain or suffering or a lot of issues physically, I said, okay, even do your nails feel good? Does your hair feel good? The
Yeah.
part that doesn't have nerves in it, right?
We have to have happy follicles.
Right. Or eyelashes, something like that. And so it's okay, but it trains the brain to look at what's good and to get that frame of reference going so that now the third step would be what doesn't feel good in my body. Okay, my knee hurts or my head hurts or I'm tired or I didn't get enough sleep. And when that happens is we want to honor what doesn't feel good. We want to correct it and bring that into balance, but we don't want that to be the first thing we think about so that we can
Correct.
frame our brain because now when we're in a state of I can do this, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, my needs are met, and I can meet these needs now of what doesn't feel good in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, in the sense that one of the things that I've been teaching my clients and just sharing with people in general, two parts directly to your point. You said when we wake up in the morning, like 90% of us, our brain automatically goes to what's bad or what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think you might be even being excessively kind to people. I think it's actually pretty close to about 95, 97% of people, and here's why.
Yeah.
Um, the reason why, as humans, we look around the world. This world has evolved to suit humans.
Yeah.
The buildings suit humans and everything, not say dolphins or horses, or whales, very highly sentient beings, for example. Is partially, obviously, from an evolutionary story standpoint, um, you know, we've got hands and posable thumbs and fingers and all that sort of stuff. True. But it's because our brains have evolved to keep us alive in some very specific ways. And to your point, um, our brains have evolved so that it focuses on the problems that we do have or we do perceive so that it can change them. So if you imagine, if we go back to our caveman days, like 2 weeks ago, we go back to our caveman days, then if we were not concerned at, waking up, oh, there's rain coming down, it's freezing cold or ice, I don't need coverage. I don't need to go somewhere. We wouldn't think to go look for a cave for shelter. Well, the any animal or caveman and their family that did that obviously did not survive winter. They didn't survive. And so it's a sort of a crude analogy, but it shows that our brain has to focus on what doesn't feel right or seem right to generate more safety and stability. An example I use is that, you're sitting in San Diego and I'm in my office in San Francisco. At the moment, your brain and my brain, we're not suddenly paralyzed by fear or very, very upset that our little four-wheel drive Range Rover suddenly broke down. We're out in the savannas of Africa, just the two of us. There's no gas, and as the sun's going down, there's a pride of hungry lions that's starting to sneak through the grass, and we can see them. This is a problem we don't have. Our brain focuses on the problems that it thinks we do have. If we went around getting upset about problems we don't have all day long, our ability to focus and create safety and stability in our life wouldn't have worked. So this has evolved over the years. So to something I said earlier, it's not necessarily a problem; it's a feature of our neurology. And
Mm-hmm.
what I've been sharing with excuse me, a client who teaches mindfulness and gratitude type meditations, and I taught her something, and she's been testing it out and with good results. And what it is, and for your viewers and people you work with, I call it supercharging gratitude. And basically, what it is, it's quite simple. You imagine something that you are grateful for. So if we wake up in the morning, as you've got people doing, you take out a list, you think, okay, what's something I'm grateful for? Now, it doesn't have to be something different every day. It doesn't matter at all, but something you're grateful for. It could be your marriage, could be your kids, your job, a wonderful new car you bought, the fact that your car is even reliable. All these things are really useful. But if we imagine a version of us who's actually in that car, appreciating that car, a version of us who is getting a big warm hug from their husband, their wife, their sweetheart, maybe their kids, whatever that thing that they're grateful for, you imagine being in that place in a very specific way. You imagine that you're actually in that person, that version of you. So we call this the Ashley who's getting a big hug from her daughter or her husband. So there you are. You put yourself into that version of you, put it into her experience. You actually want to look through her eyes, breathe with her lungs. You want to feel your heart beating right where her heart is. And as you do this, you feel even like your hands going into the finger sockets, the fingers in the finger sockets, toes into the toe sockets. And then you want to ask yourself this question, scale of 1 to 10, how strong do these feelings of gratitude, 10 being the greatest, 1 being almost nothing, how intense are these feelings of gratitude and these good feelings? It's a very simple exercise. And let's say it's at a 6 or a 7. That feels pretty good. What you want to do is you want to dial that up. You go from a 6 or a 7 up to an 8 or a 9, and just notice what it feels like. What would change for that version of you if we just take the intensity knob and we dial it up? What is it like to feel connected to these people, or to appreciate this working car or this job or this puppy that you get to take for a walk? And when you want to dial it up and just notice the difference and dial it up to 9 or a 10, you want to feel what it feels like when it's really good. Now, this is what's happening on the inside, is the actual effects of brain integration. We're actually taking the right hemisphere of our brain and we're using it to flood our system with, we have the sympathetic response and we have the parasympathetic response. There's the fight flight, there's the relaxation. We can feel gratitude, we get to relaxation. And that's when both sides of our brain start to work together for us in some really, really useful, wonderful ways. So for all of Ashley's, everyone who's watching this, I really invite you to try it. You can try it, whatever time of day or night you want. But if you try this in the morning, it puts our brain into this space of gratitude. And the studies show that when people do start off with some gratitude, noticing what is working in their life, what's going well, as in, don't wake up and turn on the news, the morning news, the talking heads. It actually has a profound effect. It shifts and changes our ability to focus throughout the day, and when your work day goes better. But when you can supercharge it, I like to call it,
Yeah.
when you can dial that number up, what you're doing is it's like a faucet, and you're using our ability to to direct what's going on in the right hemisphere of our brain to flood our brain with a more balanced cloud, if you will, of neurotransmitters, so that it gets more of it to work together.
Yeah. Oh,
It's just
exactly. And, I think this concept of supercharging too really does bring it to another level of and beyond mindfulness, right? It's not just a function of the mental mind. It's bringing in the whole body. It's bringing in the emotional. It's bringing in spiritual, and it's bringing in physical,
yes,
because you're viscerally feeling it, right? Like you said,
correct.
bringing it, stepping into that experience of being you or being with that one that you're grateful for, is stepping into that experience, feeling their fingers, feeling your fingers, or yourself transposed into that situation.
Yeah,
And that really does, that helps us connect viscerally to that feeling, which then deepens the opportunity, deepens the brain and nervous system, but deepens the whole body in feeling that gratitude versus just saying it to ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So very well put. And as you and Annie have taught me and got me to go and do more reading about it, our cells literally have memory.
Yes, they do.
Our body literally has memory. And so by being able to, like you said, to go beyond just mindfulness and to be able to expand your perceptions and just energetically into gratitude, and of course to supercharge it, which works very nicely.
Yeah.
When we can dial that up, what we're doing is we're actually like awakening our memory cells, and we're using cell memory and just the way the electrical currents flow through our body, our nervous system. It wakens up as it almost like that version of us. It wakens this just humming, energetic, manifesting being. A classic example: I had a client recently, CEO of a good-sized company. Well, still would be considered a small company, about 1,000 employees. And we were trying to shift his experience, what happens day to day. and there was a lot of challenges. There's a lot of responsibility, and of course, heavy is the head that wears the crown. When you have so much responsibility, I mean, you get
Yeah.
1,000 people's families,
Yeah.
their children's ability to go to school and eat and stuff are dependent upon your actions and your leadership, and it's keeping the poor guy awake every night. But
Yeah.
what we were doing is we were trying to supercharge his body to step into this different experience, the one who's calm and focused and in control, and his old self after all the changes that happened in the industry and stuff. He had a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And what happened was when he was able to be in the office and meet with his executive team, the people really who are let's say the generals and the lieutenants, they're going to carry out his vision to change things.
Right.
When he was able to do that, he felt like his old self. The whole rest of his day changed
Right.
because he's manifesting a different experience because people respond to us differently. If
Mm-hmm.
we're happy and calm, our spouse senses it. The people who love us around us sense it, and then they reflect it back to us.
Right.
Before we know it, we're living in an environment where, without us actually having to think, we're just by creating these shifts in our brain and our perceptions of what's going around us, we feel different, we project ourselves out differently, we can instantly begin to shape and change our environment, the people in it. And it's amazing how powerful we can manifest and co-create by being to take control of that within us, take control of what's going on, what we feel in our bodies, so that we can hack our brains, as some people call it. Um, but really to shift and change it. And actually, we're teaching the brain new ways of working. So it does it. You're doing that. I'm doing that. Specifically on my end, okay, let's turn off the triggers, the stress triggers, so that when we're not automatically getting catapulted into something that's not a resourceful state, we're not getting catapulted. We just go, oh, something went wrong.
Right.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of sit and be in myself and do what I can do. And then obviously, the skills you've been teaching for people who are in these environments they can't control. How do you learn to control or just automatically notice the information that's coming in that is going to help you get through your day and create the kind of life you want versus obviously having this disorganized brain that's so challenged to function in our day-to-day lives.
Right. Absolutely. And so as we go through that and people begin to start integrating and reframing their brains and nervous systems, they do have these sort of outcomes. They drive easier. They participate in school easier, right? They run through their day easier, and when they have more ease, they have more peace. When they have more peace and more flow in their life, they feel more at ease. When they feel more at ease, they're less hypervigilant or less, scared or overwhelmed or fretting. And when
Mm-hmm.
they're doing that, their brain and nervous system, their immune system, their endocrine system, all of those systems inside the human body are become balanced. And we end
Yes.
up being healthier and healthier each and every day. And that's really our main goal, is to provide people deep levels of understanding about how to work with themselves so that they can promote this for their whole entire lives and have
Yeah.
these tools right there for them.
You just described that so perfectly.
Oh, thank you.
when when we're able to make that series of transitions, we get to this place of peace and calm. um, you know the best decisions, as they say, in the cool light of day,
Yeah.
or the bright light, the bright light of day. When we're calm, we can think, and oh, that's what we want to do. We just sort of go do it.
Yeah.
When we're calm and we're at peace, even if something goes wrong, you get a flat tire on your way to work, or okay, your kid gets sick and you got to change your day to go pick him up and bring him home and look after him, sort of deal. When all those things happen, we can be at peace with it. We're still able to feel good
Right.
regardless of what's going on, which I always find is so amazing. The people who, things go wrong in their lives, maybe they don't have a whole lot of money, they're living a very humble,
Mm-hmm.
kind of upbringing, but they're happy.
Right.
And you can tell when someone's physically at peace with themselves. It's
Yes.
a remarkable thing. And that's what, for me, practicing what you've taught me, and obviously my own work,
Yeah.
turning off these triggers and things, it helps me enjoy my day-to-day life so much more. I mean, it's just so much more calm. And um, I just know that when I'm in that space, life is so much more enjoyable, even when something goes wrong, when life
Absolutely.
does have its stresses.
We can be happy in the midst of chaos. It's not always maybe the happiest happy, but we can
Yeah,
choose to be happy in even those moments. And yeah, we do. We have lots of tools and opportunities and sessions and energy healing and lots. All of this is energy healing, by the way.
yes,
Even as we retrain and reframe our neuronal biology, as we
yes.
start to change it, that's all energy healing as well. And we have a psychic free ebook for you, a self care ebook that
Oh, I think
supports you in
this is
that.
great. Yeah,
We have blogs, we have articles, we have podcasts, we have videos, we have all kinds of tools for you to work with yourself, with your family, with your kids, with your coworkers, everyone that you relate to.
I can't say enough good. I don't think about the ebook that you and Annie Kalatkar put together. For any of your viewers here, your followers on Facebook or Instagram, all the places you get Ashley and her podcasts and her um, go to that website. It's free. You just give them your email and they'll email it to you, the link, and you can download it. It's pretty fantastic. I've
Eh,
been playing with and practicing some of the things, and I've gotten some clients that I've recommended to. Um, go do it. It's free. It's fun, and you
It's
start shifting things right
transformational.
away.
Yeah.
It really is.
Shifts right
It
away and
really
it's
is.
transformational and it's really wonderful. I mean, our goal was to really help support people in really reframing a lot of these things so that when you come to us with deeper maybe more ingrained or more difficult in relating with other people or with your own self, that you're really, really ready to dive in and do the super duper deeper work that we do for people with in sessions, and so that you really can come out of the other end of that session work with really, really profound, lasting, lifetime changes.
Yes.
That's really our goal.
Yeah.
And we want to make the most of your time with us, and we really do value that. And so that's why we're putting this stuff out here for you to practice and learn and integrate and work with us, because we really do. We are here to help you have a peaceful, happy, and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. And to that point, um, if someone's curious to know, I know you graciously extend the same to your clients. If someone wants to know, okay, how would I know if what's going on for me is something that's getting triggered? How would I know if you know,
Right?
in terms of the stuff that I do? To anyone who wants to email or connect through the BII, the Brain
Yeah.
Integration Institute, I give a free 20-minute consultation.
Yeah.
So feel free, just over the phone, and we can chat and see if there's something that would be,
Yeah.
that I could offer you, or if that's the right thing for you, or if it's working with Ashley or Annie or one
Yeah.
of our other colleagues. Um,
And we do collaborative work together too. On
yes,
many
indeed.
clients we've experienced, we have gotten even all three of us on a video conference to support clients
Yes.
when they needed many many points of views and many
Yeah.
many aspects of healings covered in a short period of time.
Yeah.
We've done that as well. So we're
I
very
have seen the
flexible, very open.
miracles that you have. I have seen the miracles that you have helped people create in their lives. I vouch for that 112%.
Yeah, well, mine as well for you and for all of us at the Brain Integration. We really do strive for that and really work diligently to create that for you. And thank you, Mike. Absolutely. And
Anytime. Happy to be on. Happy to share and support.
yeah, so keep sticking with us because we have more to share all the time. We're putting out new stuff all the time for you to work with through your healing process. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mike, for joining us today. And we'll see you soon.
Till the next time. Thank you, Ashley.
Bye bye.